What's up, people? This is the Believe in Saints podcast, and I am Mario Jerez, Spanish play-by-play voice of the Saints, native New Orleanian, member of the Saints Media Hall of Fame Selection Committee, and she is my co-host, Erin Summers, seasoned reporter and analyst covering the Saints and the NFL as a whole. Erin, good to see you. It was good to see you in person yesterday at practice. We'll break down a lot of that on the show here today. Good talking some football with you. Good seeing you. Pumped to do the show. How are you today?
Doing great. It is always good to get back out on the field, especially when the vets are back there. You can see the media came out in full force. They're excited about the season, a lot going on. And I was impressed with how many people were there, not just media-wise, but from the roster that we were able actually to see for the first time.
Yes, we'll get into the attendance part of it as we tease the rest of the show. We'll mostly just talk OTAs today. We'll give a few thoughts on the Saints roster as well, Erin, because yesterday was the first time that we saw a lot of these guys in their starting positions, guys with the second team. Definitely want to break down some of that. So very excited for today's episode of Believe in Saints. And before anything, had to discuss the attendance. Kellen Moore talked to us before practice, a little bit of an audible. He normally talks to the media after practice, but he told us that Alvin Kamara, Nathan Shepard, Zack Wilson, and Ryan Wright would all not participate, and none of them did. No real surprises there, although I was kind of looking forward to seeing Zack Wilson, but I guess we'll have to wait. Running back Kendre Miller did not participate, neither did Mason Tipton. Miller coming off of that torn ACL, Mason Tipton dealing with an unspecified injury. Christian Miller, second-round pick, also dealing with an unspecified minor injury issue, according to Kellen Moore. And we had the conversation about Jordan Tyson and Lorenzo Styles, both who were dealing with some injuries in their own right. And they did participate, although it was in a very limited fashion, but it was still good to see them out there with their position groups running around from drill to drill. And this is what I enjoy about these things. As we said in the last episode, it's literally the first time we could see some of these guys in the black and gold. So that was good. I didn't think any of the absences there were surprising, but in terms of the attendance, did anything stick out to you?
No, I mean, the first four that you mentioned, Coach Moore got ahead of things and said those are the only four that aren't here, which is great in terms of the roster size that they're at right now to only have four that aren't there. And they were all personal reasons. Basically, what you would say is they were allowed absences. I mean, it's OTA, so you don't necessarily have to be there. But he had talked to all of them, understood why they weren't there. You mentioned a couple of the players, Kendre Miller, Christian Miller. They were both on the field, though, which I think was good because they were still standing with their position groups, watching things shake out, picking up what they could without being able to actually go through the workout. Kendre Miller working back from his injury last season, said he is still rehabbing. And then Jordan Tyson, Lorenzo Styles, they're going to continue to have their volume controlled as they work back in. Jordan Tyson said, the way that we attacked the combine and getting ready for that, he's like, I'm okay taking things a little bit slower right now and getting my feet under me, so to speak. Xavier Harris and Trey Palmer also were not at practice. Obviously, they were in the building to some degree because Moore didn't mention them earlier, but Palmer was working off of injuries last year, the ankle and the hamstring that kept him out for the season. And Xavier Harris was one of those guys. He was the 5th ranked defensive tackle going into the draft. He went undrafted. He had some arrest history that I think affected his draft stock. The Saints got him. He actually had right foot surgery after the combine. So I'm assuming he is still working back from that. So not a surprise not to see Harris there. So yeah, I mean, all in all, I think the participation and who you saw and didn't see was, to be expected and honestly good for the team to have that many people out there for the first set of OTAs.
Yeah, and I thought some of the names you mentioned there were interesting because you have some guys coming back from injury that you didn't have really all of last season. Jalen Polk is somebody the Saints made a trade for, really high draft pick with the Patriots in the past. And they knew that when they made that move, they knew they weren't going to have him last year, but they're really excited about having him this year. And that wide receiver room is really crowded. We're going to discuss that throughout the offseason. But
Yeah.
another thing I thought was interesting, Erin, was Vernon Broughton lining up with the first team defensive line alongside Brian Breesy. And this is somebody who was an excellent college football player at Texas, a run stuffer. It's a clear vision for the Saints in drafting him. And he's somebody who got injured like immediately. I think it was like the first or second game.
Yeah.
The very first game. So having him back, having Jalen Polk back, and I think the Saints medical staff has done a little bit of a better job in the last season in terms of getting guys back from injury and having them be close to their full form. But exciting to have those guys back when they weren't playing last season.
Yeah, Jalen Polk is somebody we were all interested to see on the field. Tyler Shough talked after practice and said that he and Polk have been working out weekly at East Jefferson High School. They've been getting the reps in, building that chemistry. And Shough said he is primed for a really big year. So to hear the quarterback talk about him that way, and I mean, in general, Shough spoke very highly of his wide receiver room and the versatility that he has in that. As you mentioned, we're going to talk about it a lot because there are so many more options this year than we had last year.
Exactly. And I thought Kendre Miller was an interesting name to discuss as well, because he's somebody who's pretty much a veteran at this point, especially in that running back room, but hasn't played a lot of football just because he hasn't been able to stay on the field. And I know him and DA got into it a little bit. There was some frustration about him not being able to get on the field, but I feel like Kellen Moore is really excited to see what he can do with Kendre Miller. And obviously the Alvin Kamara conversation overlaps with all of this. But in terms of Kendre, like Bobby Hebert says, I work with him. When he is hell, he is well. When he's been on the field, you've seen the explosiveness and you've seen the potential. So if he is able to stay on the field this year, that's a whole nother dynamic in that running back room.
I think you said it backwards. When he's well, he is hell. But I wouldn't be surprised if Bobby said it the opposite way as well.
Exactly.
But no, I have no doubt, because I saw him yesterday on the field, and it's like, God, his body type, he is just a freaking brick wall. I mean, he is so much muscle, and then the speed. Yeah, you want to see him on the field. He was great last year when he was able to play. So hopefully this is the year that he is completely healthy and able to contribute, because no matter what happens with AK, you do need a couple backs. Travis Etienne can't be the only one, and the skill set that Miller provides is a little bit different than what you're going to see from somebody like Etienne, AK, even Estime, or another back that you might lean on.
So lots to break down from yesterday's practice, Erin. We were both out there at the facility on Airline Drive. Chris Olave had some interesting things to say after practice about his contract negotiation. Tyler Shough and Spencer Rattler, I both thought looked really, really good. I feel like Rattler took advantage of the added reps with Zack Wilson being out. And I do want to have the conversation about slot corner, as Jonas Sanker was working with the first team there. That's been a big conversation this offseason. But I know you were out there with your notebook. You were making a lot of observations. I'll let you have the floor here first. What stood out to you the most in yesterday's practice session?
Well, I told you I like to observe all different things. So right out of the gate, they were stretching, and Justin Reed jumped up and he was dapping up every defensive player, doing handshakes with everybody. And so right now, a lot of talk has been who are going to be the leaders that emerge on this team without Demario Davis, Cam Jordan defensively, AK not there on the offensive side. And I think Justin Reed is somebody that is a front runner for that defensive leader. And you saw him immediately take over something we used to see Cam Jordan do a lot. He was the hype man during stretch, and while they were all getting warmed up, and Reed did that. And I noticed it right out of the gate. So he's emerging, I think, on that side of the ball. But then Chris Olave really is an interesting one for me, because Tyler Shough said that Olave has attacked the offseason. He looks better than he's ever seen him, size, speed, conditioning wise. And he has stepped up as a leader in the locker room, on the field. Jordan Tyson mentioned it. He said it's been so cool seeing Chris Olave in action, seeing just what he does on a daily basis, and trying to glean what he can from, crazy to say, but one of the older receivers in the room, the vet there in the wide receiver core now. And Olave is a little bit quieter and not somebody that you would think as a vocal leader, but sometimes it is just lead by example. And after practice, I was talking to Olave in the locker room, and Barian Brown came over and he looked just completely defeated. And he was like, oh, he's like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt, but like CO, can I talk to you? And Chris is like, yeah, what's up? He sits down and he was like, man, what could I have done? What could I have done on that catch? Like, what could I do? Because he was overthrown from Tyler Shough in one of the 7-on-7s. And CO's laughing at him because he's like, it's okay. Like, you just got to go up and get the ball. Like, you've got to get up and get it. At some point, you have to stop backpedaling and you have to get up in the air. If you see that it's going to be a little bit higher, it's all about gauging the depth and whatever. And so they had this conversation, and it was really fun to see Olave be in that position where he's given advice to Brown. And Brown was like, he's like, man, I'm sick. Like, I'm sick. Like, I can't believe I missed that. And Olave said, yeah, because you should have caught it. And he's like, and that's the one that's going to eat at you. And it's going to last until we're back on the field again. He's like, that's how it is. And so that dynamic and the emergence of Olave as that leader is going to be something really cool to watch this year.
Yes, it will. And I know that I've been preaching the good word of Chris Olave on this program recently, but I think it's just a really good look, Erin. I mean, somebody asked Kellen Moore about it before practice. Are you happy that this person who, is having not a contract dispute, is a similar situation as Kamara? He's on the team this year, but this is normally the time that somebody with his stats would get looked at for a contract extension. And it hasn't happened yet. He said that he's optimistic it'll happen soon, but he's still out there. That normally wouldn't be the case with a lot of guys in his position right now. And he's still helping the young guys that are going to take stats away from him and what could potentially be a contract year. Like, that shows that he is a leader, not just by his words, but also by his actions. And I'm really excited to watch him this year. He's got the continuity with the quarterback finally, and I feel like he feels really secure on his spot with the team. The big dog is the wide receiver, although you'll have other guys putting up numbers and being a compliment. He has a quarterback that he trusts, that he's going to be playing with for a long time, hopefully going forward. And it could be the best season of Chris Olave's career, despite how good he was last year.
And he did say he wanted to have that contract situation wrapped up before training camp because he doesn't want that looming over his head, the rest of the players on the team. So I think that they're going to come to an agreement, I would say, probably before the season gets underway.
Hopefully so. Let's talk a little bit about the defense. Like we said, it's been a conversation all off season about the slot corner position. And yesterday it was Jonas Sanker working in there with the first team, star slot corner, whatever you want to call it. Terrell Burgess was there on the second team when he was playing that position. And Justin Blattman and Justin Reed were serving as the deep safeties on defense for the Saints in the first team. And I think it's a good move. This is something that a situation where I think a lot of people thought they were going to go out and get somebody, like address this in the draft, address this in free agency. But although it was a different coach with a different coaching staff, this has kind of been the Saints' MO. They've kind of developed guys at this position, and it's been kind of a next man up situation. They did that with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. When he got really good and demanded a lot of money, they put Alontae Taylor in there, and then Alontae Taylor gets that big contract with the Titans. Now the next man up is Jonas Sanker. And we were kind of mean to Dennis Allen in the last episode, so I'll say something nice about him here. He was really good at developing that position in particular because you have to do a lot, right? Like you're trying to avoid mismatches. You're trying to find somebody who's really good at rushing the passer, but also somebody who's really good in coverage, and that'll help you disguise your defense, be a little bit more predictable. Dennis Allen proved to be really good at that. I have all the faith in the world that Brandon Staley can as well, but this is kind of a big test, a big litmus test here, because if this move works out, you're able to solidify this position with the 4th round pick. That'll give you a lot more flexibility on the rest of your defense.
Yeah, when you talk about the cornerback position, it was Kool-Aid McKinstry and Quincy Riley who were your starting outside corners. And it's such a different role when you move inside because you don't have the boundary line to assist you. You're playing up against complete space, and there's a lot more just area that you're going to have to cover. You don't have that sideline as like, okay, I only got to cover from here to a little bit to my left or my right. So it is a different position. Talking to Jonas after practice, he said that the coaching staff came to him and said, are you open to this? We think you're going to be really successful at this position. And Sanker said, yeah, like I'll do whatever it takes. I just want to be on the field. I want to compete, and I want the team to be successful. Coach Moore talked about his football IQ before practice and how smart he is. I mean, he played 8-man football when he was in high school. Like, he comes from a completely different background, and he had to learn a lot in college to develop at that level. And then since then to the NFL, but he has the speed, he has the ability. And he said he's actually excited for the challenge to learn something different, to see the field a little bit differently. Um, I think it's going to be a good move for him. We saw him have a lot of success in just year one as a rookie. So seeing him make this transition, I think it's a good point in his career because he's not solidified as that safety yet. And he can kind of move into this role seamlessly. And hopefully, it seems like, I mean, he got the majority of the reps. So he is definitely the leader in the clubhouse to take over that role. And it is such a key role in a Brandon Staley defense. So hopefully it turns into a successful move for the team.
Yeah, all the confidence in the world that he can succeed there. Brandon Staley made that evaluation, but the Saints had a lot of success with that position with Dennis Allen. I think this defensive staff needs to prove that they could do something similar. Offensively, I thought the tight end group really stood out, Aaron. Noah Fant, I think, stood out in these kind of drills, particularly because you're not in pads, you're not blocking anybody, and you could see just how well he moves, how nimble he is. And I'm really similar to the conversation we were having with Chris Olave. I'm really excited to see what Juwan Johnson could do with some better compliments here because he deserves a lot of credit. Aaron, he improved his blocking a lot from his rookie year, but this is still somebody who's a former wide receiver who can create a lot of mismatches with his body type and be that, I think, really big red zone threat for the Saints. So the tight end room is really interesting. You have a lot of depth. You have a lot of guys that could do a lot of different things and hopefully create some mismatches. Anything stand out to you there?
The tight end group is going to be used a lot in this system this year. They're going to lean more into the two tight end sets. You have tight ends that can be big threats in the receiving game. And I think that they're going to throw a lot of different personnel groupings out there, more so than we saw last year. The size and speed of the tight ends, their ability to not only be those inline, blocking tight ends, but they can also get in, as I mentioned, the passing receiving game. And then with the receivers and their versatility, it's going to be really hard to defend this team and to know where the ball is going on any given play. So we're going to, I think, see a lot more creativity from Kellen Moore in this year's offense.
Yeah, people talk so much about like 12 and 13 personnel, but the whole reason you put more tight ends on the field is to try to be unpredictable, to create some mismatches. Hopefully, get Juwan Johnson on a linebacker that can't keep up with them or something like that. And I'm really excited to see what it could do there, but also for the run game. The run game was just putrid the first half of the season. There's no other way around it. Whether you want to blame Kamara or whoever else, towards the end they were able to manufacture a little bit of success. But now with all these additions on the offensive line and the tight end room, I think that's going to be huge for Tyler Shough in this offense, being able to run the ball and not being so predictable.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the offensive line, adding David Edwards there solidifies that position. Interior blocking, they struggled last year for sure. And then when you have other players that are supposed to be in there to help chip on the outside in your tight ends or your running backs, and they didn't quite deliver in the way that you wanted them to. That's why we saw Devin Neal get so much more run, because he was somebody that was willing to put his body on the line to get out there and serve as a lead blocker. It's going to be interesting to see how much better the line is, how much better the run game is going to be. In talking to Eric McCoy, he said that he is flat out impressed with David Edwards, has been for his whole career. He's spending a lot of his time on the left side because he has those reps with Caesar on the right. So he is really working a lot with David Edwards right now to get on the same page, chemistry, making sure everyone's, in tune with what needs to happen, in sync. I mean, that is such a key for the offensive line. But you're adding in a vet that has just such a good track record that I think it's going to be a seamless, change for them there in that left guard position, adding in David Edwards. And Eric McCoy is still working back from injury. He said that he was working on a lot of his twitchiness as an offensive lineman. Sounds kind of weird, but yeah, I mean, you still have to be quick and the get up to block and where you need to be in your shifts. So I think that a fully healthy Eric McCoy, who has been able to attack this offseason, working on his strength and his mobility, is going to be key as well.
You could argue that's the key to the season, I think, Eric McCoy's health, because when he's out there, one of the elite centers in the NFL, but unfortunately 2 out of the last 3 years, he hasn't really been out there. And I think last year they were taking it easy with him to an extent, not playing in meaningful games or anything like that. But huge season for him. And as we're making all these observations about the players, I do want to talk a little bit about the coaching staff, because I kind of like the youth of what the Saints have going on here. And you have veterans with your coordinators, obviously with Nussmeier and with Staley. But I like that in terms of position coaches, they're giving a lot of power to these young and up and coming coaches. You're not going out and getting recycled guys like Doug Marrone or Todd Grantham, who Cam Jordan hated playing with, right? And it was cool to see Chase Hazlitt working with the tight ends, son of Jim Hazlitt, former Saints head coach. And I had to give kind of a personal shout out to Will Clapp, because I played high school football with him at Brother Martin here in New Orleans. And it's cool to see him out there as a coach, because his dad, Tommy Clapp, former NFL defensive lineman, was one of my JV coaches at Brother Martin. So I see Will out there. It reminds me a lot of Tommy. And the guys seem to be really happy to have him. So it's nice to see the continuity, not just being formed amongst teammates, but also with this coaching staff who's kind of growing along with this roster.
Yeah, for sure. Even Josh Hill getting in there with the tight ends now as another younger guy that has experience here with the Saints. And I think that having that background knowledge of the city and the culture is huge. I love the way that Kellen Moore has intentionally tried to instill that closeness, the family dynamic, bringing the team together. Shough talked about it. We talked the other day about how they opened up with the team bonding activity, going bowling, but Shough said it's been even more than that. They have shared in group settings their background of the closest team that they've been on, what it looked like, why it was successful, what can we take from that. And as he said, everybody on the team has shared some of their experience already. And it's really cool for them to be spending that time in their meetings, and not just in their position group, but going across the board. And he alluded to a story that Josh Hill told. So the coaches are also talking a little bit about their background. So you're getting to know a different layer of these players than just who you see show up on the field every day. And I think that's huge for what this team is trying to build chemistry-wise this season.
It's nice. It's something being built from the ground up, something genuine. You're not just like recycling old coaches, players that didn't work. This is a group that's growing together on the field and off the field. And that's really good to see. Speaking of Tyler Shough, did anything stand out to you watching him yesterday? I liked his post-game comments, or his post-practice comments about texting with Kellen Moore pretty much all hours of the night. He'll wake up to feed his newborn and text Kellen Moore about footwork or something like that. So I thought that was interesting. He seemed to have pretty good command of the huddle there during the team periods and the 7-on-7. But did anything stand out to you watching Tyler Shough or Spencer Rattler yesterday?
Yeah, Shough went 10 of 12 in the second set of 7-on-7s. He hit a different target every single rep. So again, that versatility coming in on the offense, a lot of different players getting involved. He looked good. His command, the confidence that he's bringing. Jalen Polk talked about it. He said he shows up confident. It makes us confident because he knows what he's doing. And it's not the first time for Shough this year. So he's already got one season down. And he said it's not a preview of what I need to be doing. It's a review of what we did. And we're now trying to dive deeper, figure out the next layer, get deeper into the playbook, tweak some things. Yes, texting Kellen Moore at all hours. Kellen Moore, he is a late night guy. And we joked around about it because practices moved later in the day and it messes with people's TV schedules and when they're trying to get stuff on air. But that's who Kellen is. And he'd be texting Tyler at 10 o'clock, as you mentioned, and Tyler said he'd be asleep. And so when he's waking up with a baby at 3 a.m., he's responding back. That's another thing that I thought was funny is how many guys had babies over the same period of time. It's like Caden Ellis, Eric McCoy, David Edwards, there's a couple others that I'm missing, but Tyler Shough obviously being one of them. And he said they have this like dad group where they're texting each other and, you know, are you up right now? Man, I'm up for the 5th time. Like this, that. That's just another way for them to bond about something different off the field.
Yes, shout out to all their wives. That has to be rough, man. That those are some true warriors right there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's good. It's good to see all the chemistry being formed. And I thought Spencer Rattler looked really good as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the backup quarterback position is going to be something that we have to discuss because there's a competition for it, first and foremost. And I just think with Tyler Shough's physical style of play, and you know as well as I know that he was dealing with some pain last year and kind of played through it. With his style of play, the Saints aren't in a position where they're fighting for the playoffs and they need to keep him kind of healthier for bigger games later on in the season. There might be a situation where you might need to roll with either Spencer Rattler or Zack Wilson for a game or two before you get Tyler back. So that's something I'm really paying attention to. And I thought Spencer Rattler looked really good yesterday, like all business, somebody who is I think really able to humble themselves because he was the starter going into last year, right? But I think he's giving it his all trying to become the second string quarterback this offseason. So I just wanted to say that I thought Spencer Rattler looked really good as well.
Yeah, I'm second year in the system for him as well. And he was that starter to start the year, kind of got thrown into the fire, being the guy to do it, run out there for the first time under a new head coach, basically all new coaches, a completely different system. So yeah, good for him. I think we learned a lot in the first set of OTAs. Hopefully we see Zack Wilson on the field in the next one so we can dive into that backup quarterback battle a little bit more.
Yes, and they have another practice session next Wednesday. We will both be attending. We will be breaking it down on the show. But that'll pretty much do it for us here today. Any final thoughts or any final observations from OTAs before we wrap up, Erin?
Yeah, just a little lanyap with Coach Moore beforehand, mentioning that they're going to do joint practices with all of the teams they're going to see in the preseason. They're going to be just 1-day practices. Usually you practice 2 days against second or against another team when you do the joint practices. But apparently the league thinks that the second day is when the fights start happening. So they're trying to get people to just do the 1 day. And that is what it is, right? Like the first day you're going at it, it's the first team guys. That's when you see some of the best work during the preseason. And then the next day, emotions and things kind of like roll over. And then there are usually a couple scrums. So 1 day against the Jags in Metairie, Cowboys at Oxnard, and then against the Rams in LA.
That is the preseason schedule. Saints will open the season at the Detroit Lions. We'll break that game down as we go in the offseason. Don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. We are also on YouTube. Check us out there. Check out all the clips that we post along with all our shows. For Erin Summers, I am Mario Jerez. Appreciate you watching Believe in Saints. Hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. And as always, talk to y'all soon. Who dat?